Yo, Brand,
It's so angry.
Develop what?
So much anger in that man.
You want to talk about this? He's what is he? 69 in 2K22. Yeah. Which I feel
everything is now based on the 2K22 rating.
Well, yeah, because we don't have Corey here to mention the Jey Uso thing, so I had to bring it up somewhere.
He does bring that up a lot.
It's been every time since.
He's got a bat that just says "dead horse" on it.
There you go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Doom Premium Live event. And that's BigPapaGrump, that's Junior. There's BigShez, and there's GoldenBoy. That'll probably be the last time we refer to each other by nicknames. And all right, lots happened this week. And I guess I was going to start out with something that happened last night, but I guess we need to talk about Butch.
Oh, you do want to talk about Butch now? You didn't want to talk about Butch all week.
Dude, it happened on Friday. I haven't talked to you since then.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we guys hanging out all week?
Yeah, hold on a second here. I will show you how much talking about it I've done.
Well, Coco's been blowing up my phone about it. I told him if he doesn't.
Okay, just because he's an idiot, but I've just learned to accept it. But yeah, there's. How do I do this? Okay,
I don't know because I can't get it to work.
Yeah, that's not going to work there, guy.
There's all sorts of stuff with me talking about Butch right there, and that is a screenshot of another conversation I was having about Butch. So I don't want to hear it because, you know, I'm a Pete Denmark.
Who?
I like. So once I found out that his real name is Butch, it just made him plain to me. And the suspenders.
I don't think Pete Dunne's real name's Butch, isn't it? Pete Dunne?
It's
yeah,
Peter something.
Yeah. No, apparently the okay. First of all, this is like 900 degrees. Okay,
whoa, buddy! This ain't only
live sex show on the podcast.
This ain't only
no. I've been married too long for there to be any kind of sex show. But the apparently the word is that it's a rib because I guess Ridge Holland, or as I call him, Captain Neckbreak, is
Neckbreak.
My God.
His real name is Luke, and so as a rib they made them Luke and Butch, and it's funny to Vince.
Oh well, I mean, it would be funny
Of
to
course
Vince.
it is.
Yeah, well, see, which surprised me because it doesn't involve poop.
I thought the main purpose of the Pete Dunne Butch thing was because they wanted to be able to have his name. Like,
well, yeah, that's why they changed his name.
Yeah,
they changed his name to Butch because Vince thought it was funny. That's the story. That's I didn't talk to Vince because he won't answer my text messages because I
guess you couldn't go Bruiser because of Dick the Bruiser, I guess. Because that was like one of the
Bruiser Butch would sound pretty sweet.
Yeah, but there's probably been like 100 other people that had that name already. Maybe a little too close to Bruiser Brody. I don't know.
Maybe. That's fair.
So, but yeah. All right. So, okay. In the same incident, so we go from this is building to a feud to that belly to belly looked a little sus to
just hurt the most beloved guy in the industry.
Yeah,
just hurt that guy.
To like, hey,
It was on purpose.
No. In fact, I don't even know how much of it was Ridge Holland's fault because the word coming from backstage is that there's no heat on Ridge Holland. So, which means that it was like one of those, accidents happen kind of thing, not a you botched it because you're unsafe.
Right.
So,
yeah, clearly it was an accident.
Yeah, it was definitely an accident. I know people are pointing to past incidents with him and trying to label him as a guy that hurts people, but it's wrestling.
Yeah, they've been wrestling each other how many times the last couple weeks? It's late. Big E's like what, 280?
Yep.
You know, like
one, a half inch, off, and it's the business, man. It's It's a dangerous game. Is what it is.
But and now you go from Big E saying, "Hey, it's not that bad. They're fractures, but there's no breaks, no damage to the spinal cord," to there's a possibility he's still career ending. Which
it's possible, yeah.
It was blown out of proportion as being a thing because there was an independent surgeon, like someone who specializes in that kind of stuff, who was saying that it's possible that it's career ending because of similar like neck breaks like that, where it's like, it all depends on how it heals. And apparently it's the C1 that is, I'm putting in my neck like we aren't sure what part of the body it is.
Well, he said C1 and C3, but
C1, C3,
right.
yeah.
But it's the C1 that's
the
big question mark, because it all depends on how the C1 heals. The C3 should heal fine. The C1's like, so it all depends. So people are panicking that Big E's career's over because like Russell Talk was like, "Oh my God, he's gonna die," and they're like, and then they explained it a little bit better. It's like, all right, stop clickbaiting me a little bit. I was scared there.
Yep.
But then, but apparently it's like, but the word got out there. It's like, well, this isn't just yay, he'll be back. You really got to watch how it heals.
Right.
So,
well, he posted a video on Instagram today. He was walking around his neighborhood or whatever with his brace on. And, it's typical E and, perfect positive spirits as he always is.
yeah.
But, so, I'm hearing that, he's talking to, close friends, and he's obviously pretty bummed about missing WrestleMania, which,
yeah,
it's like missing Super Bowl. It's crazy. So, yeah. So that sucks for him, but credit to him for the shape that he was in, because I don't think anybody of a lesser build would be able to take that impact like that and still be able to walk. So,
if he actually had a neck, it might have been worse.
Right.
But it's just muscle. It's just muscle and then jaw and then muscle.
Correct.
So, like that guy can lift weights with his eyebrows.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So
I guess the other big thing to cover that happened is they finally took the belt off Britain. Thunder Rosa's AEW Women's Champ, and while I'll let you guys talk, but A, thought it was a good match. B, it was probably the worst of the 3 matches they've had.
Agree with both counts.
But it was still good.
Yeah.
It was entertaining. And am I the only one who's just tired of thumbtacks every time?
Yeah, I was trying to figure that one out too. It's every match.
I just maybe it's just for forever, but like the thumbtacks, it seems too gimmicky, and you don't factor in the collateral damage. Did anybody see what Aubrey's Instagram where she was showing all of the marks from her doing the 3 count onto the tacks?
Well, that's her own damn fault. But no, that thumbtack spot with Thunder smashing Britt's hand into the thumbtack going through the lockjaw was wonderful.
Yeah, that was good.
Main purpose of the tacks. And then Britt has to roll over and try to use her left hand to put lockjaw in. That was great.
My
favorite spot of the match.
But my favorite part of that entire sequence was, I think it was Jim Ross who was like, "Who keeps leaving thumbtacks under the ring?"
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, Jim.
I think, and then they try to play it off that Jamie Hayter or Rebel planted him under the ring for her.
Yeah.
That's not
Shivani,
true,
I think
because every match that's hardcore has one in that company. So what do you mean?
Yeah, that's just what they that's just what they say,
but I did genuinely like the absolute real crying fit that Thunder Rosa had once the match was over. And plus, am I the only one who, this will be the second time I've referenced it, who thought she looked a little bit like Papa Emeritus from Ghost when she first came out, like her makeup? It was like it had the black right here. Anyways, but yeah, it was. I mean, I'm glad that I thought they should have put the belt on originally at Revolution, and then found out that okay, they're going to do it in San Antonio, so I get it. But it kind of just made the Revolution match pointless.
Right.
Ain't really, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, other than being an entertaining match, but actually, you know what? I think maybe the Revolution match was the weakest of their three. I think this one might be in the middle. It's still a fun match.
The thing with this match was too, where, I mean, the hype for this was more than any of the other matches.
Right.
Because they had the build up of the year from a year ago with the whatever the hell they call it, this Shamrock Slammiversary or whatever it is.
Yeah.
St. Slam. So I mean that match, obviously match of the year, that's all they've been talking about. That's their defining match of their career up to this point. So you're billing this and making this up that it's going to be possibly more brutal than the first. I mean, you go so far past that match. So that's why I thought they did a pretty admirable job with just, you know, some of the different spots and arcs that they did.
Right.
Many people in this room appreciate the last real genius of professional wrestling, Chris Jericho.
I was up and down with that promo until I really started to kind of get into it.
I loved it. I loved it.
And it seems like they're building towards, you know, with them talking about, you know, sports entertainers and Regal spouting about like pro wrestlers. You got to figure that they're going to be building a stable that's eventually just going to take on the JAS.
Yeah.
What,
Brian and Moxley? I don't know about that, but
I do. I think that's what they're building towards. Maybe not like oh, we got three more people. Let's go get Chris. But I think that's going to be the trajectory at some point.
All right. Who would you think right now in AEW would join that stable of Moxley and Danielson?
Danhausen.
You know, you got it.
He's already in a stable.
So was Wheeler Yuta, who was actually the correct first answer.
You think Wheeler Yuta's joining that stable?
I think eventually. I think that's what that moment he and Regal had. You know, I think that's, and the reason he went back, I think that's going to lead to him joining. Because he was actually one of the guys that was name dropped by Daniel Bryan anyways. So they kind of already hinted. I just think Danhausen should be in every stable.
Can he wrestle anytime soon?
I think he should be ready within the next couple of months because he just broke his leg in December. So, you know, it does take a little while to heal. Anybody else want to chime in with that? Because I'm all in on Wheeler Yuta.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm excited for this stable because I'm excited to see what they do with, I guess, what is it now? Angelo Parker and Matt something, Magic Matt, whatever the hell they called him, formerly known Matt Lee. I'm excited for those two guys, man. Like everything like you've seen from them in the past, obviously very underutilized, but they can talk, like they're funny. I think they're going to fit in great with Chris. You know, say AEW, they've gotten a lot of high profile tag matches. And then, you know, they kind of played second fiddle to Daniel Garcia there for a little bit. But, I mean, Daniel Garcia was main event in Rampage, it seemed like every damn near week, you know, against whatever new talents they were coming in. But, you know, Daniel Garcia, you know, formerly 2.0, like, man, you really haven't get to see those guys put the, you know, pedal to the floor yet and really see what they can do. So I'm kind of excited on that aspect to see how they can play off this because, I mean, shit. With what Jericho did with Inner Circle, I mean, those guys were all in primetime matches and marquee, you know, situations throughout pretty much their entire time. So it's going to see what they do and, you know, who they go after. So, I mean, first off, you know, obviously you got to settle your score with Kingston, Santana, and Ortiz at some point. But, I mean, that match could be a lot of fun right there. But
Awkward silence.
He made great points. There you go.
Yeah, fair. I'm still trying to think of who else I would put in that stable.
Keith Lee and Strickland. You have to make it all like old NXT guys.
You know, I heard. I guess they said Max Caster put out a tweet. Well, obviously with Rampage, he's fighting Keith Lee, but apparently in his rap, he called Keith Lee Cleveland Jr.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
Well, no, it wasn't in his rap. He just when they were cut, he was just cutting a promo.
Oh, I was cut the promo. He called
Yeah,
Keith Lee Cleveland Jr.
Yeah, I thought that was like I forget what I was doing. I was playing with something on the computer when I was listening to that, and I was just like, and then, so
What about Miro?
that might not be a bad idea.
I know that's a WWE thing, obviously, with that, but I mean, he does have the brawling and violence prowess.
Well, yeah, I mean, Jericho, like if they're going up against
That'd
Jericho,
be a good
Jericho
big
has
man.
his former WWE guy who shouldn't be anywhere near a mic. So
That's true.
what?
I was gonna say Miro would
It
be a
was
good
perfect.
way to balance out Hager. That would be a good one.
That was more of a shot at Hager, anyways. Keep him away from a microphone, damn it.
Well, he had Zeb Coulter his like towards the end of his run, so there was a reason he had that.
Well, why are you letting him talk when you have a perfectly good Chris Jericho right there?
Shoot.
Just to give him his moment to shine, man. All right, he had some pretty good one-liners after his Bellator fights. You can shine if you let him, all right. But it just gets overshadowed with the greatness of Jericho, which is why we all appreciate him the way we do.
Jericho, not Hager.
Now let me ask you
We
this.
appreciate Hager.
Now let me ask you this though. Going back to that promo real quick,
Unfollowed.
is sports entertainer a trigger word for you guys? Does it bother you? Like, does it, cringe you a little bit? How do you feel about that?
No, it's
No.
for me. It's the sports entertainment thing was just Vince's way of trying to get New Jersey to allow him to put on shows without like having to pay extra taxes.
Right.
On top of like legal wrangling in court cases and whatnot, it allowed him to differentiate himself from regular wrestling, and it's become a negative because of people who don't like WWE in the way that they produce their entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
It's taken on a life of its own with a lot of indie guys who want to be wrestlers. Not so much indie guys, but a lot of it was like it was vocalized a lot more with the indie guys not wanting to be sports entertainers but wanting to be pro wrestlers, and kind of like bringing it back to that old school kind of approach to the profession. And so I understand it's a negative when it's being used as a negative, and in the way Jericho's using it is he's triggering the marks and the people that aren't like that don't care, because now he's annoying everybody just by acknowledging it, which I think is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, I rambled.
Shez, you want to jump in on that, or?
No, yeah. I mean, he pretty much nailed everything I was going to talk about. Yeah, the sort of origins of sports entertainment, the moniker, and then and I think now Vince sort of uses it to really push and designate the difference between the talent that he has as opposed to the talent elsewhere. Being sort of ties in with being a WWE superstar as opposed to everybody could be a wrestler, but not everybody can be a superstar, blah, blah, blah thing.
Yeah.
So, no, it doesn't bother me, but I like the way Jericho is using it, because it is going to trigger people for sure, especially an AEW crowd and a fan base. So, yeah, it works perfectly. It's excellent work.
Well, I think I think what part of the things he said about too is how he said about how we read stuff on social media.
Mm-hmm.
And by him saying that, like, that's a social media thing. Like, that's an uptick piece to get people riled up on social media, because I think it's more perceived than real that fans of wrestling are just fans of wrestling. I really don't. I mean, do you have people for AEW or WWE? Yeah, but is there really that diehard where like you just can't stand one or the other? I don't
Right.
think so. I never physically, face to face talked to a wrestling fan that just absolutely despises one company or the other.
It's
So
just on Twitter.
doing that.
That's where you see it.
Yeah. So like with him doing that, I think he's like coming after the, perceived AEW fan base online where, that say, we're the wrestling company. We care about wrestling. We don't, it's not the sports entertainment company. We're the diehards. And also too, in an aspect, you have a lot of those people, those fans that I feel like, they think like AEW is theirs,
Yeah.
Maybe some other wrestling fans can't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it like that in that aspect, I was kind of thinking about it, and like it kind of has that it kind of has throwback and shades of what Mick Foley did in ECW, where Mick Foley, back when he was in ECW, and that was the whole like Kane Dewey thing and all that, where everybody wanted violence. So what did Mick do? He just went out and wrestled. He just did like the opposite of what that rabid fan base really wanted, which was the brutality and the violence and, the spots and all that shit. So he just did the exact opposite. So like, Jericho kind of teeing off on that and, doing the perceived opposite of what that fan base wants. I think it's genius, man. And you know what? That's something where you strike while the iron's hot. And, we had the Vince McAfee interview, a week or two ago, and it's a topic of conversation. So strike while the iron's hot. Don't wait for it 6, 7, 8, 10 months, 2 years down the road and try to pull this shtick again, because you're not going to get the results that you want. And I think the JAS is going to get great results, pushing this. So
Agreed.
See, I always viewed the IWC, I don't even know if they're still called that anymore, the same way as any fandom, or actually any big, large group of people with an opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You've Star Wars is Star Trek. There's extreme sides, but most people are in the middle, whether or not they like both or neither. Right. Republican, Democrat, far left, far right. Most people in the middle just want to be able to afford to pay their taxes. It's that kind of thing where whether you're right Twix or left Twix, it doesn't. Anytime that there's two sides, you're going to have your like polar opposites, and most people in the middle just want to watch and enjoy. Marvel, DC, blah blah blah. Like there's so many of them. All right, so okay, this week, we got the tragic news that Scott Hall passed away. First of all, let's talk about, like, I don't always like side with the stuff that X-Pac tweets out, but the tweet about like, could you guys stop sending me condolences tweets? He's not passed away yet.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
I was just like, yeah. Like they mean well, but yeah.
Right.
Because I was mad that they didn't do anything on Raw, and then I didn't realize that he had passed away until after.
Yeah, he had passed right as the show started, basically.
Yeah.
Like it was like 8:03. Like it was close to the start.
Yeah, so like, and they had their video package ready, so I was just like, okay, all right. I thought he had passed away already.
They
Right.
I thought they started with it, but like just like mentioning that like it's state or whatever, and then they did the video package at like 10.
Yeah. So
I mean, it
would have been perfect for Cody to come out afterwards.
It was unfortunate with all that stuff, but I mean, when you say someone's on life support and they're just waiting for family to get there, like, I mean, we all know what it means. So,
well, he was off the life support.
Yeah, he was off life support. He just he was still alive for a few hours after they took on life support.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if people were posting, like memories of the guy, and that makes sense. But yeah, it's like, but don't hit people. Oh, X-Pac, rest in peace to your buddy. Like, I mean, the man's holding out hope here. You know what I mean? Like, one of his best friends on earth. So, let the dude try and pull for him a little bit.
That's a perfect segue talking about memories, because that's kind of what I wanted to focus on with this. Is now some of us weren't born. Some of us weren't even biologically a factor yet. But Sean and I we both, were watching wrestling back in the day. And while AWA was really, really hard to find on TV up in our neck of the woods, we used to get Pro Wrestling Illustrated. They used to have wrestling magazines, like physical, little shiny.
They still have that magazine. It's what works that stupid Twitter debate every year. AEW wins every award. But
and we used to you would read because Scott Hall and Kurt Hennig were AWA tag champs. That was my introduction to Scott Hall. Was this guy who was like, wow, he and Magnum TA have the same exact mustache.
Absolutely right.
And then when he came to WWF as, of course, Razor Ramon, Sean actually, I remember this vaguely but minorly vividly, him telling me, it's like going, you know who that is, right? It's like, no, it's like, that's Scott Hall. I'm like, no, it's not.
I do remember that a little bit.
Because if you look at a picture of the Magnum PI Scott Hall from AWA, and you look at Razor Ramon, like, they don't look the same.
Right.
It was that much like he slimmed down, like, because he was bulky, muscular back then.
Like huge.
Yo, what? Bro looks like Jake the Snake Roberts. What the?
I'll accept that.
That's what the first thing that popped into my head. I just looked at the picture and had them side by side, literally like you said. I would have never known that was the same person.
Crazy, right? Yeah, it's crazy.
But I would imagine that Junior's experience with Scott Hall probably started with them coming to WWE in the Invasion.
Yeah,
like that WrestleMania.
I mean, I've seen stuff and I've looked stuff up and watched old stuff, but I wasn't introduced to him until he came back, basically.
Yeah, because anything prior to that, I was like, it was just going to be just noise. What about you, Kev?
So, with all this stuff, I was introduced to Scott Hall. I started watching wrestling 95, 96. So mostly for me, it was when he went to WCW. I very vividly remember that, him going to WCW, and only a very small tidbit of seeing Razor Ramon, when I was a kid. So that was pretty much all my aspect is, the Invasion, and then the Outsiders with him and Nash, and then, the NWO. And then, him leaving, and then all the stuff he was doing in TNA. That was pretty much the extent of my, memories of me watching wrestling with Scott Hall. So.
Yeah, I remember early on, I was just with the Razor Ramon thing, I was like, yeah, but now that I know that that's Big Scott Hall, it's I can't deal with the Cuban accent. But after a little while, and you just saw where he was going with the character and just how cool he was, and it was definitely different. It was something WWE was known for their characters, but this one was actually I could meet this guy and he could give me a big old giant move from 6'8" in the air or whatever his height was, and in the sidewalk on the street, and I would completely believe that was happening because it would make sense. He was that level of I could see that.
Yeah, your point, actually, that era, just thinking about that era, and like you said, the character-based guys, all the characters that had jobs, like Duke the Dumpster Drosy or the Goon or Sparkplug Holly, whatever, all that stuff, looking back, even then was silly, but even sillier looking back. But when you look at Razor Ramon's gimmick, it didn't seem silly. It for some reason it worked differently than all those other gimmicks.
Well, because you started to see around that time, and I'm not saying it started with Razor, but it might have. But like Shawn Michaels' gimmick was Shawn Michaels. Bret Hart's gimmick was Bret Hart.
Right.
You know, Lex Luger's gimmick was Duh. You had was never a Lex fan. Like Ric Flair's gimmick was Ric Flair. You know, so you had like those larger than life gimmicks were larger than life because of the people portraying the character, not so much the character. Like Hulk Hogan's gimmick was larger than life because of the character.
Right.
You know, but you started to see that turn, and it became more pronounced when you started to get into like Stone Cold and stuff like that. But you started to see a shift in how they were doing their top guy gimmicks, and even like Razor had kind of dropped the gimmick to an extent. Like he wasn't, because remember the vignettes with him sitting in the car with the top down,
right,
and just spitting on people for getting his order wrong, and you know, all that stuff. And it just, he kind of just evolved into a badass.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the more over the top aspects of the character were kind of faded away, and then he lost to 1-2-3 Kid. So maybe he should have kept it. But no, if
never his buddy.
Well, that's two. There's two big moments besides the curtain call that I could think of in WWF involving Scott Hall, were obviously the ladder match with Michaels, which it's funny because not everybody remembers that Razor won that. A lot of it's like it's a weird Mandela effect in wrestling where a lot of people thought because like Shawn Michaels had to have won that match because it was Shawn Michaels, but no, Razor won it. But the other one, to my point, was him putting over Sean Waltman early in his run. Yeah. And
well, to point with that, with the Sean thing is, you know, Sean and Scott have similar redemption stories, you know, as far as like personal. Sean's was actually, you know, obviously celebrated a lot sooner than Scott's. You know, Scott's happened a lot faster. So, you know, Shawn Michaels has been in that spotlight for so much longer, and how they, you know, celebrated, and, you know, all the look back on his career, they always talked about that ladder match. So that's why a lot of people, you know, always think about that. But just one other moment, because you were saying about, you know, the 90s stuff, and then, you know, putting over 1-2-3 Kid. To me, one of the biggest things that stands out with Scott Hall, just a little, you know, a couple years after that stuff, like he was the one that basically ended Goldberg's streak, and that was massive.
Well, I hadn't gotten to WCW yet.
Yeah.
Well, I know, and I'm sorry if I jumped the gun there a little bit, but you know, there's just so many memories of the guy where, like, when you look back at the Monday Night Wars and the Annuals of History, of like, man, this guy's right in the middle of so much stuff. You know, for me, that Goldberg thing was just absolutely massive. You know, him using that taser, and then Nash hitting the powerbomb to end Goldberg's streak at, you know, 173-0. Because, man, when I was a kid and I saw that, I hated Scott Hall for that. Because, you know, when you're a kid, you know, you think Goldberg was a superhero for me, like when I was a kid. But damn, man, I hated him for that.
We'll jump ahead to the outsider stuff and all that. If you know, one of the things that can't be understated is that he and Nash really kind of revolutionized the way wrestlers get paid, and the way companies shouldn't pay wrestlers, like the type of contract.
Correct.
So he and Nash really just kind of just changed the game for the way for the pay scale for these guys.
Yep.
And it wasn't just Hall, Nash, and Hogan's contracts that kind of buried WCW's finances, because actually those three contracts were fine, but the way they were, it was everyone after that, they were just like, oh, here's some money. Oh, you get some money. Look under your chair. Everyone's got a briefcase full of millions. you know, and then then like Buff Bagwell's like the 8th highest paid wrestler in history or something, and you're just like,
right.
but
Yep.
you know, it's like I don't know. It's almost like Paul Holmgren was like the GM of WCW. just give as many old guys long contracts as possible. Sorry, Kevin. Paul Holmgren is a hockey guy. So anyway, the
Terrible hockey GM.
yeah. Oh God. Just who's the oldest player on a roster? Extend him 5 years. Why? I don't know.
Well, they're hockey players. They play till they're 60.
Yeah, but they shouldn't be making that much money at 60.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that was one of the things that I always thought about when it came to Scott Hall was the that and his WrestleMania match against Austin is never talked about because it was kind of a very middle of the road match for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
But he still got a WrestleMania. He was a big enough deal that when the NWO was invading, they sent, you know, I guess Nash was hurt, right?
I think he was
for
hurt,
WrestleMania.
yeah.
But I think but they basically the 3 guys from the NWO, and they were I guess the plan was to send their 3 biggest guys at them, and it was Austin and The Rock, and of course Nash didn't wrestle. So but he has a WrestleMania match against Stone Cold Steve Austin, arguably one of the most popular wrestler of the modern era.
Right.
You know, so and very few, not many people can say that because you know, basically just The Rock.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess Michaels, because I guess Austin was pretty well over when he got the belt off Michaels.
You know, the thing about Scott, you know, and sort of learning about it, I think that's the only like silver lining, like when these guys that are really revered, you know, pass away, and you know, there's sort of a makeshift memoriam, especially online. You know, you get a lot of stories that you just didn't hear before, or ones that maybe you heard and you forgot about. Like one I forgot about for sure was that he gave Sting the idea for the Crow gimmick.
Yeah.
You know, I totally forgot about that. And Sting mentioned that. I don't know if he mentioned it on Twitter or something. And I said, wow, I completely forgot that Scott was involved with that. That's crazy. And, you know, and somebody was talking about, him putting over the 1, 2, 3 Kid. He had done the same thing in Japan. And he had, you know, and it was just a testament to him and his vision of the business and always sort of looking forward. You know, even when he was sort of battling his demons and he was still struggling, you know, he always sort of had his eye on the prize in terms of, you know, the business going to be like when we're gone. Like we need to build these young guys up, and we need to sort of sacrifice and, you know, and set our egos down a little bit to get these guys going so that the business continues to be healthy. You know, and it's just something that, you know, as a 40-something-year-old dude that looks at wrestling a much different way than I did when I was holding up that Ric Flair magazine, you know, I have a great appreciation for, you know, that sort of thing and his mind for the business. So also probably the greatest working punch I've ever seen in a wrestling. But
trying to think, who was it? Somebody had pointed out that they do their punch is all like basically an homage to his.
Well, The Rock's is.
Yeah, The Rock. That was The Rock.
Yeah, I thought of that right when you said that. See that?
Because I remember that story from years back that Patterson said his punch was crap, and he was like, "Well, what should I do?" And he was like, "Watch Scott Hall, just watch Razor Ramon tape." And so that's what he did, and he just emulated his punch after that. Yeah. So that was cool. Yeah, that was cool that The Rock pointed out that he had a chance to sort of tell him, you know, how much he was an influence on his career and, you know, how he worked and everything else. I thought that was really cool that he pointed that out. You know, obviously The Rock is, you know, continues to be the biggest ambassador for wrestling that we'll ever see.
Hey, there's no TV show that says Little Austin.
That's true indeed.
No Little Flair show.
That's because they don't want little kids cussing on TV.
I do watch that.
You know, Shez, it's interesting though. You you bring that up about, some of the stories and stuff, because you hear about Scott and, the ideas he had for other people. And you said about putting over other people and things like that. And like, it's just kind of interesting to me because like, when you hear about, all the stories about the clique and all that stuff in the 90s, like they're not really the best stories.
Nope.
And, but like for the last 10 years, 12 years, obviously WWE has such a massive spotlight. So like, you kind of felt like a lot of those guys were getting redemption stuff, like a lot of the stuff that Shawn and Triple H have been doing, the last 12 years. It seems like they're really, again, this is just my perception. It seems like they're trying to give back and like almost kind of make up for maybe the ways that some people were treated in the past, because of the moves they made. But the stuff you're hearing about, Scott Hall never had that, hasn't had that massive spotlight in almost 20 years.
Right.
But he was doing that at such an early time. He was doing that earlier than all these other guys and, giving tips to these young guys. And, I'm guessing maybe that has something big, to do with him leaving WWE and then, going through New Japan and TNA and all this other stuff. But, it just, it's got to speak to something about the guy, like, him not wanting that spotlight, him just wanting to help out, the young people doing this and that. It's just an interesting vibe,
Yeah.
Well, you hear about like stories of Michaels not wanting to put certain guys over.
Right.
I mean, not just certain guys, but I'm not going to name names, but their names rhyme with Bret Hart. They you hear, Triple H has a reputation for the golden shovel, and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
But you don't really hear like Nash kind of had a bit of a reputation when he was booking WCW,
Right.
but not necessarily not wanting to put guys over, but he would get heat for when he would put guys over, when he would have certain guys go over other guys. But you don't hear that about Scott Hall. You don't.
No.
I can't really think of any stories of Scott Hall refused to put me over.
Right.
Or Scott, he wouldn't do it this way. He went to WCW. He obviously got his nugget, and wanted to be paid. Like he wanted to be like, you're gonna pay me that much money? Okay. Can I get a little bit more?
Well, he sparked the wars, man. So
right.
Yeah.
But his intention was just to like, look, Vince, because he wasn't even going to go.
Right.
But Vince couldn't match Bischoff's offer.
Right.
And so that's when he went, because Nash was the one that was going.
Yep.
And so you don't hear that about him, about the like, obviously he went for the money, and that's not a bad thing.
No.
But usually the perception with the clique is like, once they started getting money, they started getting power, they started getting influence, and they started to kind of abuse it. And yes, maybe they were a bit of a hassle backstage at WWF, fine. But you don't hear the stories of like, Scott Hall didn't put me over, or Scott Hall wanted this, or he demanded that, or he walked out because of this,
right,
or stuff like that. He was just like, dude, I'm getting paid. What do you want me to do?
Yep.
Well,
So,
maybe a piece of that too, just showing how selfless he is. And again, this always kind of sucks how, unfortunately somebody passes away when you have these career retrospectives and stuff like that. But like, when you've had these conversations in the past about, the greatest wrestlers to never hold a major world championship, I never heard Scott Hall's name.
Nope. That's a great point.
I never ever heard Scott Hall's name brought up in those points. And
Nope.
Really his major single stuff was Razor Ramon, when he went and sparked, the Monday Night Wars. It started out with him and Nash. Yeah, they won a shit ton of tag titles. I think it was like, I don't know, 8-10 tag titles. I'm not sure. I know they were a lot.
I'll tell you in a second, because I have it ready.
Then, obviously both of them end up taking the backseat to Hogan.
Sure.
And, when the NWO splits, Nash ends up being the head of the Wolfpack. Nash has a couple world title reigns in there. And then, even when Nash came back to WWE, him and Nash and Hogan, back to WWE in like 02, 03, I believe Nash had another world title in there. if he didn't win the world title, I remember him fighting for the world title, at least with Triple H. But like,
Right.
oh, that was another thing for me as a kid. And again, at 96, I'm 6 years old, 7 years old. So like maybe that's, in a part where a lot of people in my generation possibly might not understand the body of work and the respect for him because he was in the world title picture.
Yeah.
Who you see going at the world title is the best. It's not the guys you see, fighting on, Thunder or, Sunday night or, whatever other, secondary shows they got, so,
Right.
I mean, you got to give him in respect to that. I guess he never cried the blues and forced his way talked his way backstage into a world title picture. I think he was just seemed like it was along for the ride and, putting as many people over as he can and putting on the best show that he can and, just doing the best that he can.
All right, to put that into perspective, all right, one-time AWA tag team champ with Kurt Hennig. USWA world heavyweight champion, but all right, moving on. WCW television champion one time, United States champion twice.
Yeah.
WCW tag champion 7 times, 6 with Kevin Nash and once with the Giant. TNA tag team champ with Kevin Nash and Eric Young. I didn't watch TNA, but was that some sort of Freebird rule?
Yeah, they had a match. I think it was like some horrors match or something. It was against like Styles, I think Sting, and
of course Styles was in it. And 4-time Intercontinental champion. That's his
Razor Ramon.
Yeah,
That was when the IC title actually meant something.
Yeah, that was the workhorse era of the title. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another great point. I mean, that IC title didn't lose steam until probably the mid 2000s, late 2000s.
I blame Cena.
Reverted to as that. Well, I think Cena.
I blame Miz.
But anyway,
okay.
They talk about that golden age of that Intercontinental belt, the workhorse belt. The belt that they're ready to. You're ready to vault into superstardom, and Scott Hall holding that 4 times during that era.
Yep.
Actually,
that gets passed over a lot.
It was kind of meaningless during a large chunk of the Attitude Era.
Yeah, it was. That's true.
It wasn't really until Angle got a hold, not just Angle, but you had that
Jericho.
Angle, Jericho, Voldemort, those guys that were like wrestling for I don't want to get demonetized, so I'm not going to say his name.
Hey man, didn't Val Venus hold the title during the era?
Like I said, but yeah, no. When they were kind of hot shotting it, that in the European Championship between like Benoit, yeah, I'll say his name. Jericho, and oh god, who else? I guess Eddie was in on that a little bit too.
Yeah, he was in on that too. Yeah.
When that was when it started to build back up again. And then I think Sean's point that once the Miz got it, it was dead.
There was Scott, he's I think in retrospect, I think people are going to look back and really realize how one, how good of a worker he was, and 2, how pivotal he was to the business. The business wouldn't even look like what it is today without the invasion angle, without the stuff that they did. Sting's career wouldn't look the same without him saying, why don't you do the crow gimmick? Like, there's a lot of things he put his hands on that are pretty iconic that wouldn't have happened without him. So
think about it this way.
He's
WWE
immortalized.
Would not be worth $25 billion.
Yep.
If it weren't for Scott Hall and Kevin Nash jumping ship.
100%. Absolutely right.
Then that Boulder Chase in Indy just started going, and it just I don't know what's up with the Raiders references, but it was, I haven't even watched it in years, but without that, without that, none of those dominoes fall. I mean, maybe they do and they just fall differently. Right. But you don't.
It doesn't look the same, right?
Because you probably don't have TNA because there wouldn't have been a need for it.
Right. Yeah.
you probably don't have AEW because there's no
Right.
need for it. Hell, TNA might be the one that we're doing monthly videos on.
Right.
Shudder.
Damn.
We can.
Yeah. I was okay for the record, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Was not a TNA fan.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
I didn't love it.
Yeah,
That's the ring.
First of all, the ring.
Ring was a problem
irritated
for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
It's
TNA.
different, man.
Old fashioned dude.
But it wasn't always the 6-sided ring. They did have the normal ring. They actually
Right.
felt like being a wrestling company for a while.
Yeah,
But not everything was bad. But if you notice, some of the stupidest / dumbest moments in modern wrestling history all come from TNA.
There's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot.
Like once WWF had stopped. Well, okay, even now because I can't forgive the Katie Vick angle either.
Yeah, it's all right. Katie Vick is always.
Maybe it was just that time frame. Maybe everybody was listening to too much new metal and it just affected their judgment.
All right, you're hating. Stop hating.
But yeah, I mean, hey, look, that AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle. I mean, there was a lot of great stuff.
Jeff Hardy versus Sting also happened then.
Okay. Wow.
I'm sure if you go back and watch that 6-man match with Hall Nash and Eric Young, you'd enjoy that.
There you go.
There was, you know what though? I'll say one for a company that I really didn't like and couldn't watch on a regular basis. I still think the X Division was probably the best wrestling on television during that era.
That's fair.
Anything that had an X Division label on it, I
Mhm.
could watch.
Yeah.
Anytime
Sure.
you started to get and I had long since given up by the time they got around to Aces and Eights.
Mm.
Because
That was like a
Stuff,
2 year.
actually.
That was like a 2-year storyline. It was wonderful.
yeah, okay.
Long.
What
Yeah.
you and I have different definitions of wonderful, but
It was
but hey,
really good when
you.
they started showing like who the leaders were and stuff like that. Like it was, man.
I thought it was really good that somebody actually gave Ken
You didn't
Anderson
watch
something
it.
to do. I did.
like-
I did watch it when I.
That
could
was like
find
one
it.
of the longest running stories in like wrestling history in like the last like 30 years.
Yeah, and I kept waiting to hear Jimi Hendrix music playing in the background because that's how convoluted it got. It was just the end. I was waiting for the Aces and Eights Wolfpack.
Anyway,
Although I do think
any other fun memories of Scott before we wrap
Yeah,
this?
you know what? He wasn't in Aces and Eights.
He probably was. He just never took his mask off.
No lasting memories, but I did post on Twitter that there are a lot of great matches that people can check out, and there are, and obviously the ladder match with Sean and the return one, and what was that? What's that was SummerSlam with Sean?
Yeah.
And I mean, there's some, there's matches with Bret Hart that are great. There's a lot of matches out there that you can really check out. Even watching when Hogan turned to Bash the Beach, not necessarily a great match per se, but
But it is the most pivotal moment in wrestling history,
I
probably.
mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable that the crowd had that much trash to throw.
There's a lot of trash.
There was a lot. Like I've seen people I root for Philly sports. I've seen fans throw things.
Oh yeah.
And that surprised even me. I remember JD Drew on Battery Night, but that's like that line from basketball. It's like, oh, what a horrible thing to happen on Dozen Egg Night. But what was it? Yeah, I don't remember now. I was gonna say something. Doesn't matter. Oh no. Nope, still forgot.
Yeah, that's what happens.
I'll point this out. Well, just
Age.
a little stupid, but when I was a kid, man, actually thinking back on it a lot, like Scott doing the whole thing to Nat, I did that all the time. So like my buddies and like when we were playing basketball and stuff like that, like when we'd have signups come out and shit, guys would be coming around down the bench and you'd just be sitting there, fingers like.
I did that too. It's fun.
Trunks and Goten did it better.
That's Scott, man. Who did it better?
Nothing. That was for Junior and Junior only.
I didn't hear it. I'll have to watch
Oh,
it.
I said Trunks and Goten did it better.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
that was going to be another point, man. Could you imagine if he ever fused with Kevin Nash? My God,
Their power
Oh, I
levels
forgot
aren't
you
the
would
same.
actually
It
get
wouldn't
that
work.
too.
I think he would have been a world champion for sure.
Their power levels aren't the same. It wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, but what are their ratings in 2K22?
They're not the same. I know that. I don't know what Kevin Nash is because I don't care about Kevin Nash. So
You say that now. All right. That's
don't.
gonna do it for us for this week. I'm a Big Papa Grump. That's Junior. That's Golden Boy. That God, the mirror. I really should need to mirror this differently. That's
Junior and I
Big
are going to
Jez.
fuse.
So and we'll
It's a
catch you
Junior
next
boy.
time.